This has been, so last time I was in town, last time I was in the Bay, it was not a lot of work. It was a lot of waiting to do this Qigong project. November 8th is the launch of the 8piece.com online course, which is super exciting.
Very cool.
We've worked really hard on that. 3 teachers, 3 things. It's the course where that workshop was the final kind of video or installment of this beautifully shot course with the great Heath Orchard and amazing team coming together. And then Heath Orchard and myself went off and we shot the new mobility stuff for the Yama system as well. But plug for www.the8piece.com, spell it out, THEIGHTPIECE.com. We're giving 30% off for the pre-launch. So if you order before the 8th, you'll get 30% off. After the 8th, no, you're going to have to wait for the next time. So we will do some various sales, but yeah, get in there, be part of our pre-release. And that was, so we're so excited about this. Let's see what else. Coming to the end of my time here. Thank you guys, everyone that booked me up 30 days straight. Scott knows you guys worked my little keister off. I'm like, I put out, I think, 1 email and I got 30 days straight. Thank you to everyone that used the online booking. You guys made it easy on me. And I'm sorry to all the people that didn't get in time. Sign my list and check those emails to where you can get in, because I'm getting so many emails right now being, where are you? Where are you? You know, I'm going to speak for all local bands too. Local bands and local artists and people that we take for granted. How many times have you shown up and, you know, you walk into the show and you're like, oh, did you guys already play? They're like, yeah, dude, it's 9:30. We went at 8. It reminds me of those days when I was like in a band and people are like, oh man, we thought you were playing later. It's like, nope, we said we're going on at 8.
Everybody's got so much to do, which you should not be doing now. You should be reducing radically the number of things on your plate.
Yeah, so we're coming out of whatever moon, dog moon?
So we're coming out. So we're coming out of the dog moon, which was a wood dog moon, and we're going into the pig moon, the 10th moon of the year, which is also a wood pig moon. So there's good things about that. There's good things and bad things about that. I'm personally pretty excited, as I'm part wood pig, so there's like a joyfulness to it. I mean, the way I've been trying to figure out, the way I've been sort of exploring how to articulate the content of the 10th moon in general is it's actually pretty simple. It's not that difficult cosmologically speaking. So in the 10th moon, it's the time of year where heaven and earth, what they say, heaven and earth separate. So right around, you know, the 9th moon, the dog moon is characteristically the time when all the dragons would go up to play in the alpine lakes, right? And then the cold would come and it would freeze over the lakes and they would be trapped until spring, when the ice melted, and then all the flow, you know, the great changes that come with spring would be released. That would be called how the dragons get released. And so there were all these historically, there was all these shamans in Asia that would know how to sing and do ritual to actually release the dragons. And then that means to release dragons means to release the spring. And so when you're talking about, you know, the 9th moon and the arrival of winter, because that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the actual arrival of winter. So we've been doing all this prep, you know, through the autumn, and then this kind of transitional time with the 9th moon. Then in the 10th moon is when, okay, this is when actually winter does arrive. And yin, which calls seasonal yin, begins to really move in, you know, because, you know, yin's been gaining, you know, in its influence, you might say, for a couple moons now. It's just that yin never becomes dominant. Yin never, like, you know, grabs you by the scruff of the neck and gets your attention. So it's always been a suggestion to comply with yin So that way you're ready when yin does grab you by the throat. And that's
Hmm.
coming, right? So winter is that time where you can't ignore it anymore. It's too cold, too dark, right? So how do you survive through that period is how you've conducted yourself through the autumn, right? So now at the pig moon is where you get these sort of tangible shifts, in the ecosystem. And one of the ways to describe that is that when heaven and earth separates. So these kind of very dynamic kinds of energies are usually associated with yang, qi, the kind of pushing and moving energy that comes with heaven, which is basically the avatar for seasonal yang is heaven, right? So they say peace out, right? They start to disconnect and drift apart. What that does is that opens up this incredible spaciousness of Earth, which is Earth is spaciousness. That's the idea. And in that spaciousness, you get a cold wind that comes through, right? And this cold wind, where it wants to do is it wants to penetrate the bodies, all bodies, bodies of water, the earth itself. That's its job, is to penetrate and immobilize, to create like fluids to slow down. And that includes our own bodies, right? So we are open, we are on Earth and a part of Earth, so we are available to this cold wind that basically can penetrate our bodies and cause conditions like so. That's why you should be strengthening your Wei Qi. You should be covering up, even if it's warm out. It's not about the temperature, right? That cold wind is basically more volatile in places like the Pacific Northwest, where I'm at right now, than it would be like in the Bay or down by the equator, but it still exists. It's still out there. And so if we're sweating and we're basically opening up our Wei Qi or breaking our Wei Qi, and the Wei Qi is like a kind of like invisible armor, then that cold wind can penetrate the physiology, and depending on where it goes in, what channel it accesses, it creates that organ problem, right? In like either the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, particularly susceptible because we're going into water. We're going into seasonal water with the pig moon because it's natively water. So this is the idea, like it's very simple in the sense that like we've been talking about like what do you want to take with you through the winter? What do you want to take with you? What do you want to take with you? So now you got to put it on your back and carry it, you know?
Hmm.
And the idea is that whatever it is that you want to carry through winter is the very definition of value.
Hmm.
Like those are the things you actually value. So if you've done all the autumn work of like discerning what it is that is important to you, that's what makes the pig moon a joyful time,
Hmm.
right? I know what I am, I know what's around me is all reflecting my being. Because as heaven and earth separate, this is like the distinction between being and doing in non-conceptual meditation, right? So doing is an expression of our being. And so when we back away from doing, we're going toward being. And so this is the seasonal time of year where that's actually being is the suggestion, is that we're backing away from doing and being naturally arises. And the assumption in the cosmology of the Tangshu is that this is a really fun place to be. Like this is a joyful, like when we're backing away from doing and we're just like fully in our being, right? So this is
Hmm.
the nourishing of essence. It's another way to describe it. This
Hmm.
essence is the yang qi that we now store within. We don't let it out. It's in, so we're keeping it safe and we're nourishing it. So you should fatten up, don't sweat, don't overexert, eat more food, eat nourishing food like bone broth or stock or marrow, like these very strong, nourishing foods, highly suggested, right? Like how we commune, how we love each other, how we, take care of our own bodies. Like everything's very close in now because we're not doing, and yin is sort of coming in to restrict us, almost like putting like a blanket around us, right? So everything of value is very, very, very close in.
Mhm.
And so that's what we're here to discover this moon are those things that we really value, so we're supposed to be nourishing, this life essence, not letting it out, not we're not hiding either. We're not to conserve and kind of huddle in is not to hide.
Mhm.
It's more about like appreciate, really dive into the kind of sensuousness of our existence. That's what the 10th moon really always encourages us to do, is to be very sensuous in our experience, because we're supposed to be going toward this kind of gentleness and quietude, because that's what the environment is suggesting.
Mhm.
That's what our surroundings are suggesting. So it's not very conceptual, to be honest. It's very personal, because I can't tell you how to nourish your essence. You could get your pulse taken and be like, oh, you need more meat, or something like that. But there is this kind of like, I think the assumption in this cosmology is that when we slow down and when what I say is nourish the essence and avoid excess.
Mhm.
So if we're in places of excess where there's like strenuousness and drama and stories, pigs are the chi of forgetfulness. The pigs that, forget the stories. Like it doesn't like forget the stories, forget the drama. You don't have to fix anything. There's no chi to fix it with. It's just don't feed the stories.
Mhm.
And the suggestion is that they will resolve themselves. It doesn't mean they go away. Maybe we need to attend them in the spring. And then as an astrologer, I'd say, well, yeah, the spring would be better. So if you can
Right.
put things off until February, great. Like it's just that, if you're sitting there feeding tension, that's what you get. And that's all. And that's bringing your essence up and out when it
Mhm.
should be going in, right? So that's generally the suggestion. And there's a process with that. Like for instance, the first week of this 10th moon there's still a kind of negotiation that's happening. But once we get to like next Friday, I think it is, then you're hitting stillness. Like then it's really about, okay, you should try it. Just try sitting still. Like that's, like it seems non-productive, but you're already using like that's not production isn't really what's available now in the 10th moon. It's over. Heaven and earth is separated, so you have to, so whatever resources that you're using from now going forward to spring, whatever resources that you're using won't be replenished
Mhm.
because heaven and earth have separated. So know that. So if you're out
Mhm.
there sweating and trying and training for a marathon, Ming would say like you're damaging yourself because there's
Mhm.
nothing in the atmosphere that helps you recover. And then so it like takes 10 times more energy to get the same benefit that you would get in the spring and summer when the energy was very vibrant, and you need to like exercise to kind of balance yourself out or to get rid of excess, or to feel the benefit of all that vitality. For now, like you need to treat vitality as a precious thing. But ultimately the suggestion is that when you do bring it in close in like that to that sensuousness, there should be enjoyment there, and a kind of enjoyment that's not about accumulation, and it's not even about purpose. Right? It's just about your existence. It's just
Mhm.
about the being, sitting still with yourself. This is very difficult for Americans. Like it's like they can't sit still. They probably don't even like themselves that much. So it's like this could be challenging, for some people to really acclimate to, and they'll try to externalize and keep distracting. And I think doing so, then the vulnerability aspect, especially with a wood pig, which is very vulnerable, that comes kind of more forward, and then it's more like despair, and even
Mhm.
like this kind of like, oh, woe is me, oh, life is terrible. Like pigs can go to these really dark places. The pig cheat can really do that. So I think in a lot of ways, like most things, like it's resultant, right? So it kind of depends on how you've handled the last 3 months, but if you just keep pushing, 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 pushing and expect to have the same, spring and summer results, then there's a lot of ghosts out right now. And there'll
Hmm.
be, the ghosts are coming out, and so we make
Yeah.
ourselves one of those ghosts when we're just looking for things to consume, and to sustain ourselves because we haven't done the kind of conservation necessary to this point to just coast and bring it inward and enjoy ourselves, right? So we're still trying to keep the momentum going when there's less and less to consume. So energy vampires, check out your relationships. Like how are those treating you? Because like if you're
Hmm.
having things that are kind of constantly bringing forward emotional stress, um, you could get sick. You could get sick
Oh, there's
because those
so
things,
much. I mean, those of you, if you're listening, if you're one of the people that came out to have like some of the emotional release stuff that I do,
yeah, I
and
know you do
the
that a lot.
amount of the like I said, the journaling work has been so profound with people and their state of mind and their bodies, even. Uh, I'm breaking it off completely from the Yama system and starting its own business
Mm,
around like
mm,
training people how to do this work, just because
right.
um, and one of the things that I was talking about is like when you can sit and when you can be, the
Mm,
idea is you're no longer in that go 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 mode, but you can actually
hmm,
like feel your baseline. And then when you can
hmm.
be, you can actually just feel when your baseline changes. Because again, like there's not one thing that I've ever taught that people don't really know. Like the concept is it's not about that. It's about
Right,
being aware
right.
when that consciousness goes away. Like that's really
Hmm.
all it is. It's like everyone knows thoughts, words, actions, breathe. It's like I need to relax and all the, but it's like, are you aware of the things that make you not align your thoughts? Are you aware of the things? Are you aware of
Mm,
the times that break that consciousness?
mm,
And
mm.
that's all the training is about. Are you aware of the story that you're always telling yourself, and that there's a through line voice and view that you're using all the time, right? Are you
Yeah,
always the victim, the hero? Are you this? Are you complaining? Is it political? Is it always about to go back to your trauma? Is it always going to go back to your parents? Is it always going to go
story.
back to blame?
Yeah,
Right? Or is
stories.
it going to go back to just reporting the facts to yourself and not even half fooling yourself, but just literally just training yourself to know I can look at this 5 different ways to let myself know that it might not be a problem. It's just an imbalance somewhere. You know what I mean? And how to ease back on the problem solution model and just say, all right, I'm going to make one change to see how life responds to that,
Yeah,
and just to return back to baseline might be enough. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
it's been
mean,
really fun.
the interesting thing about, as I always say, we don't need a product, we need a practice, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing about being in a pig moon and when talking about being, because like I'm as a practitioner of these ways, I'm a little nervous talking about this being doing distinction because
Mm-hmm.
people, it goes into much deeper territory, right? But it's something to understand that, there is no accomplishment of being.
Mm-hmm.
It's meant to be this sort of experience, in sitting. So if you're sitting in non-conceptual meditation, you don't say, "Oh, I reached being 5 times in the next hour."
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't
Yeah.
happen, right? You're not, there's no accomplishment when it comes to being because being is kind of a constant,
Yeah.
and it's really about how we roll back from doing. Because when you're sitting in non-conceptual meditation, sitting completely still, you're still doing. There's still rhythms in the body. They're doing all their stuff, like digesting yesterday's meal, like salivating, like blood's moving. You're creating urine. I mean, you're still doing. And that may translate into thoughts that are, creating grocery lists and all that stuff. But again, sort of inconsequential to being. All of these
Mm-hmm.
things is generally understood as an expression of being, right? A perfect expression of being. So you can never unseat being, you can never destroy being or harm your being. Like your being remains unchanged from birth to death. So being is this an opportunity to come to stillness and to, in some ways, have no experience or not anything you can really, conceptualize, because that's a different thing, right? That's when you start doing again, you start conceptualizing and trying to grasp the experience.
Mhm.
It's a story you tell yourself after the fact. It's not the experience itself. So in that case, I only bring that up to say in the 10th moon, we're not like hunting for being. It's not like trying to accomplish being. It's really just about removing the obstacle for being to make
Yeah.
itself aware, right? So that's all, like, so when it's just to say that if you're allowing yourself to unplug from the addictions of continuous stimulation or worry or all those things, then the opportunity is kind of joyfulness, enjoyment,
Mhm.
where the idea of I sometimes describe peace as the joyful expectation of nothing in particular. It's just
Well,
walking down the
there's
road and you have this kind of contentment and you're like, life's pretty good, but you don't have a reason for it. You're just
Mhm.
there, in that experience. This is sort of the opportunity of the 10th moon. It's quite profound
there's a funny
from,
thing. Like when we were doing that workshop, Sheldon, Master Sheldon, we were talking about meditation. And he's like, "No, you're always meditating." He's like, "But if you're just on politics, you're meditating on politics, and if you're doing this, you're meditating on, you know, stress. If you're always thinking about stress, guess what? You're meditating on stress.
right.
And so a good part about winter and stopping and all this stuff is a time
Yeah.
to just sit and see what comes up, and maybe that's what you are, and maybe that's what you've cultivated, and then you can start making choices for later of like, oh wait, do I really need this feeling? Like, it's the cliche. Okay, how would my life change if I kept this or got rid of it? You know what I mean? It's like, and that's kind of a moment of contemplation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
it's
that's why I
also
say
in
that it's
the.
like, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was just going to agree with you that this carrying, what are you carrying through winter?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
this is kind of, especially in these first few days of the 10th moon, last chance, and setting
Mm.
these things down won't be easy. You should have been doing that and like discerning and like, I want to partition this off from this experience and then set this aside. But now, you have to throw the whole thing out, so that
Mm.
you'll have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like at
Yeah.
this point, if you really do want to get rid of something that's heavy, and that's something that maybe doesn't serve you when you, as you say, sit down and this is who I am right now. The way I would describe it is like that's what you're carrying. The
Yeah.
question is that what you value? And so
Yeah.
does it, by value meaning what I'm willing to carry through the winter? So I think that Ming would talk a lot about how clients, like, he was always telling us that you have everything you need to discover value. There is
Mm.
no like external source that tells you what to value. It's
Mm.
only in your experience where you find what to value. But people, we're not given the opportunity to cultivate that capacity within ourselves. I mean, other cultures, but for sure here, no, like we're not really given that understanding because we are accustomed to living outside of time. We have indoor heating where, if it rains, like we can still get in our SUV and conquer the world, because it's fully traction equipped and all that stuff. We don't have to really relate to our environment if we don't want to, until yin gets so heavy that it kind of buries us in snow.
Mm. Mm.
Right. And then we're like, well, I guess I can't go anywhere. But like,
Yeah.
if we were in a kind of listening to omens from the environment, if we were in time, then we would have these kind of subtleties of engagement available to we value because what are we willing to carry?
Mm.
If it wasn't so easy, if it wasn't so easy to carry it, would you still carry it? Right? If
Mm.
you didn't have a big, SUV to put it in, if you had to only put it in a backpack, would you still carry it? Like
Yeah.
those are kind of very potent questions to ask right now. And, and like, and so that's why I use that metaphor to discover what we value.
Mm.
So I think that that's a really good opportunity in this moon, and to be honest, just to be completely, work on the honesty with ourselves. Don't worry about being honest with others. Like really be honest with ourselves about
You
all
know,
of
it's
that.
it's one of my favorite things. So I told
Yeah.
you there after every practice, I'm always like, all right, what do you know now that you didn't know then, right? And I do that at the end of the day too.
All
It's
right.
like it's kind of what do
Right.
I know at the end of the day that
Right.
I didn't know? What do I know at the end of this conversation that I didn't know? Um,
Mm,
and that question has never
mm,
been
mm.
answered from anyone. I have to coach them through it. Like no one pays attention. Um, and they don't know what to say because they think I'm testing them because we're a pass fail kind of society where, but it's like, no, what do you know now? You're like, well, I
Yeah.
know I've never been
Yeah. What
asked
does
that
he want to
question.
hear?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, it's kind of like, I'm not looking for anything profound. I'm literally like, I've learned I have to
Mm.
pee right now. And
All right.
yeah, it's
What
like, that's
stands
kind of
out?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's literally it. You
Hmm.
just want to like tune into anything, just tune into anything. But the other one that I just stopped asking because no one ever answered it. Was when I would initially have clients come in, I would just say, I just want to know, and if you ever want to take time, just write down what you value. Just right, internally, externally. What are your choices in that? Like, do you value family? Cool. What does that mean to you? Right? What does valuing
Yeah.
family mean? Is it
Yeah.
having a
Yeah.
family? Is it your mom and dad? Being close to family? Do you like what does that mean? Do you value success? Do you value
Mm-hmm.
what are you driven by? And no one ever
Yeah.
answered it.
Yeah.
Um,
Money.
People would just be
Yeah.
like, huh, and they
Mm.
never just kind of so I just kind of stopped.
Pigs and dragons very similar in some ways, but they get to a similar place through different roads.
Mm-hmm,
So the dragon would say nobody cares, and the pig would say everybody cares, and they come
mm-hmm,
to this kind of same agreement. And I would say in the pig moon, the interesting thing about that phenomena of because we're going toward the rat, which is this kind of social situation, very deeply social situation where the health of our communal body, the health of our society, the health of whatever size grouping you want to talk about. I mean, health and wealth and resources when you get to rat are definitely communal. Like they're
mm-hmm.
all deeply interconnected because that's all we've got, is just each other to keep ourselves warm. So we're moving toward that direction. And so now this kind of capacity for compassion of the pig is really, really strong. And it has to do with this experience of turning strangers into friends, because pigs are very naturally capable of turning strangers into friends. Because in the 10th moon, there's a lot of prohibitions against strangers because I only have limited resources. And so I don't want to quickly just give things away. I need to guard and insulate my essence, right? So not let it out. So but the pigs chi is that, well, how do we work around this? How do we become friends? Instead of like, nobody talk to me, nobody talk to me. There's some pigs that are like that, but a wood pig is going to be more like, oh, you don't have anywhere to be? Please come to my house for dinner. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's that kind of generosity that exists that's very because it's in this spirit of wanting to turn strangers into friends so there's not a threat in other words, I'd rather give resources to you than you take them, than you having to take them. So this is a very Confucian response to the situation. So like, how do I make you my auntie instead of a friend? How do I make you my cousin? How do I make you
Mm-hmm,
my brother? Like
mm-hmm.
emotionally, how do I take and bring you in and be generous with you so that way you can be cared for and nourished and then released into society and then not be a threat to other people, right? So this
This
is,
is
is very naturally pig.
I was talking to someone just the other day, and they're just exceptional at things, right? And I have a lot of people in my life that are just like crazy exceptional. And the thing was, it's like we want to
Mm.
help and be there for people, but now it's about it. I just had a very important moment where I was just asked to do a pretty big like act of service, right? Huge act of service. And I was finally
Okay.
like, you know what? There's no shortage of
Okay.
heroes. I don't need to do that. I was like, I've
Mhm.
sprung and risen to the occasion so many times over and over and over again. It's almost been to my demise numerous times. And so the idea
Sure,
was
sure,
it's not
sure.
about like they're on their own or anything like this. It was about now I've found the community that is now able to create the foundation of a culture that I want to be a part of, right? And so I'm keeping that really
Right, right, right,
close,
right.
and I'm spoiling myself with people. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I've moved from a lot of things because it's like you can't be the only one that's doing your push-ups and sit-ups and has the strong back. Like if you're the only one with the strong back when it's time to move house, it's tiring,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you've seen me
Yeah, I
numerous
mean, so this
times,
this
parts
is
of
a
groups.
yeah.
You've seen that with me a lot, where I'm like, huh, I'm doing a lot. So this is one of the most profound exercises that I did with a class one time. There's a bunch of kids and they didn't give a shit, but there were two that did. And I was watching the two that did care. I was watching them disengage, right? And so I grabbed those two kids and I did a thing that was really against kind of Bay Area inclusive thing. I kind of kicked everyone out of the class and kept those two kids. And then those two kids, I worked with them for just like 2 weeks. And then I got them like dialed in. And then I started inviting kids back, two, four at a time. Right. And so now it wasn't this overrun of all just the wiliness, people that don't give a shit about themselves or others. It was two people that set the tone. And then when people
Mhm.
came in, they got to like keep up and, they weren't so far ahead. They were holding, it was like, it was just enough. And they
Yeah.
trickled in. And then over time, the class built to something much larger and it had this really cool culture behind it. Right.
Mhm,
And so
mhm,
it
mhm,
was,
mhm.
but that's the whole idea of winter. Everything falls off, let it die, and then and
That's
then
true.
it can
That's
come
true.
back nourished. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
then rebuild. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so this is again like kind of the systems building of society that has a lot to do with the rat. Like
Mm-hmm.
there is a kind of and that's full model for how we engage, right? And so these kind of conditioning aspects, all these things that you're mentioning that I've witnessed you're exceptionally good at. And so, like, I completely agree. There is this kind of negotiation that's happening, particularly in the 10th moon, that's a little not quite as conceptual. It's a little more like kind of feelings based and also episodic, meaning that pigs are great episodic friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody you meet in at a gas station or at a grocery store, open exchange as a pig. Like
Mm-hmm.
they just were like, I just had the greatest conversation with some stranger. I don't even know
Mm-hmm.
his name. That's very pig, because
Mm-hmm.
they're all just about this one conversation, where I just like helped you out to your car with your groceries. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
ask for nothing. Hey, everything's good. I've done this, like, and it's not even there's no thought process behind it. There's no, yeah, I've got 5 minutes. You're not even checking. You're just there being generous, like contact from
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm not trying to be your friend, long-term friend. I'm doing an episodic, friendship, which is like just in this opportunity that's available where you're just sending that kind of attitude, in the environment, which is,
It's
yes, it's a bit permissive, yes, it's like very accepting, but it's also just this generosity that's not qualifying people on anything.
mm-hmm.
But there is a negotiation to it. It's like what you're comfortable with. And this goes back to what you were talking about earlier, is that one of the main things about the 10th moon, about pig chi in general, is appetite. Like understanding our appetite. And this is where we're rolling back to essence and being, because this and joyfulness, this expression of like enjoyment as it relates to our appetite. right?
Mm.
And so, because if you're getting rid of all the stuff and the excess, avoid excess, nourish essence, right? If we're actually rolling it back, to being, then you're like, you know what? I want some ramen, like it's not, I don't eat it because it's, this has all the nutritional things I need. I don't have a conceptual model. It's just something that awakens, that speaks and makes you want to make eggs. Yeah. And that, or bone broth, or I feel like having a Diet Coke, like it doesn't matter what it is as long as you're able to listen to your appetite. So it is this kind of bringing things closer in, um, that is really important, like knowing how to pay attention to your appetites.
Mm.
Um, you really, this is the time. If you don't know what you want and you don't really know what you value, this is yeah, I would say the first thing to do is get rid of all the stuff that gives you stress, like, but obviously in this society, we think stress means if you're under a great deal of stress, it means you're doing something important. No, no, that's that's not true at all. Like especially now, like it just means that you're squandering. That's all, And there's nothing wrong with that. You can keep doing it if you want. Like we were saying last moon at David's thing, like what would you tell somebody that's going too fast and has too much? You're like, go faster. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Like go as hard as you can until you can't go anymore. And then, then you can actually you can have these things kind of, your appetite will come back to you.
Yeah.
That's the whole point about being, in this cosmology, is that it's never ruined. So even if you overdo it, you will eventually come back to your being. Your appetite will eventually come forward, unless you're so depleted and chi deficient that, and then at that point, you need treatment, to
Yeah.
find your appetite again, because you're depleted, like, so you don't have like a ability to contact, yourself.
Yeah.
So you
That's
need chi to relate.
well, and the constant go, like coming back, like the baseline of coming back, like the pressure and the anger and
Baseline,
the
yeah.
stress out here.
Using your words,
Um,
that baseline
yeah.
bit is actually where you would find appetite. And at this point,
Hmm.
it would also be where you find happiness or joy, like an
Yeah.
enjoyment of your life.
Yeah.
And that's not attached to accomplishing or accumulating anything. I've often said, like, I feel like if you're in our culture in particular, we should be angry, we should be angry that we are fed messages that our enjoyment is attached to accomplishment or accumulation. We should feel
Hmm.
angry about that, because the root of enjoyment, the root of joy, has nothing to do with anything outside of you. It has
Hmm.
everything to do with coming back to your own being nature. So if you're getting constant interference in your capacity to do that, a little anger is okay.
Yeah.
Like pigs are very good. They can get aggressive. They can do that. And so what that's for is to kind of push off that kind of obstruction and like be able to come back to your own sense of enjoyment. It can be very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated at all.
Baseline,
So
I was writing the other day and I was saying baseline is like bending your knees. Like when you first start martial arts or roller skating or anything, they're going to tell you to bend your knees. And you're going to be like, my knees are bent. And you're like, no, they're not. Bend them more.
mhm.
And just kind of like it around in the city, like when I come back, it's like I know a lot of people out here and I'm around people constantly when I'm here, and I see them for 1 month, and then I'll leave for 3 or 4 months. I'll come back, and their baseline is like risen, right? So their most relaxed day last year is here, and now their most relaxed time is here. Rarely do I see anyone the
Go the
opposite,
other
right?
way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Rarely, like the just ambient hum of society, where whether I was in when I was in Austin, when I was in Dallas, when I was over in the Carolinas, like everywhere, it's just and so just know that when you feel calm, go a little more, just like double it, because you could always double it. And trust me, there's no shortage of like you can get there, no
Mhm.
problem.
Yeah.
Like that
Mhm.
that's easy. It's like telling a kid to just like tag you're it. They're like, and like there's no like there's always energy for a spaz, you know what I mean?
Right,
But
right,
to
right.
tell someone that's feeling that to be like, okay, now sit, focus, right? Oh, that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Or to just or to if someone goes tag you're it, just be like, yeah,
Yeah, not giving a shit, that's a
mm,
superpower,
yeah,
at this point. I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty amazing. And you can, and I will come back to the by saying that like yin is pervasive and it makes it easy to not give a shit. It makes it
hmm
easy to forget the
hmm
stories, that you cling to, or the of trauma or whatever, or
hmm
blame or critique or all. It makes it easy to let those things go. So this is the time to let it go. Like this is the easiest time to let it go. If you don't let it go now, then you might not get any rest at all for the
hmm
winter, which means that you won't have any kind of internal resources to start with when the spring comes. And then you'll be looking for more, you'll be kind of externalizing this kind of like, I need to accumulate resources in the spring so I can do things, but you won't have anything to start with. It's kind of like, ruining your seed crop, right? Or like,
hmm
or spending your seed crop, or those kinds of things. So you do want to insulate essence, you want to insulate yang that's stored within. You do want to be nourishing essence at this time and not letting it escape.
hmm
So that's the big thing, and again, I always come back to like, well, how do we do that? Like it's paying attention to your own experience and using all the cues that you might give or someone else might give about baseline and such. But I can make it even simpler. It's like, are you stressed out? And like, yeah, well, then stop. Like,
hmm
just stop. Like, because that's actually what the environment supports is withdrawal.
hmm
It's heavily suggesting withdrawal. So then you have to look at why you don't want to do that. Because you don't, because you're kind of attached to there's something there you actually do enjoy. And that's why I think Ming would say, with people who are like really deeply suffering about something, it's like, well, if you don't want to do that anymore, stop enjoying it.
hmm
Like you're there suffering and you like, it's like people who would like to complain, like, and I don't want to gaslight anybody's experience, but the truth of the matter is you can dig and find out what you enjoy about it because you
hmm
probably do enjoy something about it. And so this is just being honest. This is not trying to an attempt to like blame somebody who's in a bad situation. It's just to say that we're involved, and in this place of constant reciprocity. So somewhere in our experience, even the most difficult one, there's something we've chosen. There's something in there that we enjoy, and that doesn't make us the responsible one that needs to be punished. It just means, oh, well, that's the pin. I pull the
yeah,
pin out, and then the whole thing collapses. So it
yeah,
is a kind of empowerment that's available in that when you do recognize the things you enjoy about what, and we're all a little S&M, and please, like
oh
that's
yeah,
the, I mean, that's just a fact, so we all enjoy things that aren't good for us. And there's no morality in the Tongshu. There's no morality about that. So it's just being honest with ourselves about that experience. So this is also a very good time for honesty, and being that kind of as deeply honest as possible. And I think you only get there if you're willing to sit with yourself. You're willing to be alone.
yeah.
You
There's
know.
that there when you're talking about like just stop. Like the way that I phrase it is if you can like I journal, maybe you want to like just talk to somebody. Can you zoom out and listen to the words you're saying, or even recount without judgment and say, "Oh, I was talking about this." But regardless of how you record your interactions, what's your through line? Like, what's the through line voice? Are you complaining a lot? Is it always about your health?
Right.
Is it always about right?
Right.
And once you find that through line, you can say, is there anything else I can? Is there any other way that I can tune into this? Right? It's
Right.
like because if someone was always coming to me and talk and just complaining, I'd be like, look, I want one of my best friends out here. She was one of the first people, like Heath, and when I was working as a chef, I had
Mm.
one of the
Yeah.
chefs there.
Mm.
We were talking the other day, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I remember like when you." Because now she's like a world renowned, like one of the best chefs on the planet, right? This woman is
Okay.
a badass, and
Nice.
um and and she was cracking up because like I was in the front, kind of chatting to people, and she was always stuck in the back, and she was like, why don't they ever ask me to come up front? And I looked at her and I go, because you got a no face. I was like, you have a no face.
You
Yes
have
face. I
no
have a yes
face.
face.
No.
You have a no
Yeah.
face. And she was like, oh my God. And just that. And then after that, I was like, just, you don't have to like come out and, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, welcome people into your restaurant.
Be
You know what I mean?
welcoming.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
just look up.
Yeah.
And she, but she still, this is
Smile, or
22
something.
years later, she was just like, man, she just like, because everyone else like was just mean to her, and they were like, you know, they were talking to this
Oh,
bunch of French guys,
oh,
and they were just like, Stan, you know,
right. Yeah.
and then, but I
Hmm.
was like, ah, but her and I were like really tight, and I'd be like, yes face, no face, and she was just like, oh yeah, because she was, you know, kind of grumpy, or you know, it's so funny, and
Did she discover her yes face?
oh yeah, yeah, she's
Yeah.
masterful. And
Yeah.
again, it doesn't mean go out there and be bubbly. And to
Right.
all you people out there that are sitting there talking about like men always telling women to smile, yeah, first off, you can zip it, because see these eyebrows and this face, the amount of women that have just looked over to me and be like, hey, smile, right? Like, trust me, it happens to
Yeah.
anyone that has a kind of a grumpy, you know,
Or, I mean, believe me, like, and listen, I can turn people away, just shifting whether or not
oh
you
yeah.
want to look at people or smile.
Hmm.
It's not really about, I mean, yeah, I mean, just as a clarification, this ain't about women. This is,
No,
this
no,
is
no. This is
about,
about like just any of
this
us.
is
Yeah, yeah,
embodiment. This is
yeah, yeah,
embodiment, right? The
yeah.
embodiment,
Hmm.
I mean, pig chi is very deeply connected to embodiment. Because we're rolling back from the things we affect and do in the world to what we
Hmm.
are in the world,
Yeah.
right? So especially in the Chinese tradition, especially in the cosmology, the Tongshu, embodiment is big. Like, this body actually matters. Like, in Buddhist understandings, like, they're more focused on the mind. They're not so much worried about the body. But in Taoist and Confucian cosmologies, the body is actually matters.
Well, it's
Because
a manifestation of the mind.
and yeah, of course, and your particular either emotional or mental state is often can sometimes and often be connected to some organ. Like, so if I'm got a lot of grief, my lungs, need
Hmm.
treatment or etc. So there's, we can connect the dots on that, but it's just to say that, this is not a disembodied understanding of reality. It's very embodied. So yeah, reflexive, it's a great time to like practice smiling at people or saying hi. Like, that's
Hmm.
it. You will be fucking amazed, like at the way in which the world responds to you if you engage, if you allow yourself if you give yourself the permission to engage in that way. And to be honest, like, maybe some of that response wouldn't be what you want, like, oh yeah, what's your
Right.
name? And like, oh, okay, that's too much, but like, now that's the kind of joyful sense of exchange. That we're already in communication with one another. We're
Ooh.
already communicating just by being embodied, Matt.
Can I say something? Can I say something to all the listeners? This is my heartfelt moment to everybody. Um, a lot of my clients have been in, it's like, whether they're in pain or not, and a lot of my friends and everything, we get through a lot of their pain just by getting them to change their story. So like your story, like
Oh.
the is manifesting in your body all the time. That
Mm.
being said, we don't want to overthink it, right? Because then we become afraid of negative emotion as well. The idea
Right.
is, what I've learned is, find people that you can talk to, and the reason why you want to do this, and just go into it with this. Yes, it could be a very big deal to you. Find someone or hold space
Mhm.
for somebody, knowing that it you don't have to make it a big deal. Like, so if you came to me and talked to me about something that is very much a big deal to you, I don't have to mirror that.
Okay. Yeah.
My
Mhm.
job is to hear it, not judge, and just listen. But sometimes we get in this place of like, what do I do? What do I do? How do I fix? Like the amount of times, like when someone comes to me, and I remember 20 years ago, I'd be like, oh my God, they're coming to me with this big thing. But it's like, no, it's like, oh yeah, they just want someone to listen, right? And they want someone
Mhm.
to talk to them about it and just hold space. And so therefore I'm saying this because now, like, whenever people talk to me, like, they're like, this is such a big deal. I'm thinking, cool, like, I
Right.
know it's a big deal. The key word is, it's a big deal to you, and you're not hurting your friends by talking to them, and also talk to them
Right.
as if like you're just letting them in. It's your job to not put responsibility on them to fix it, and it's their job to just listen. And then the
Right.
other part of it is also like not making about ourselves by being so empathic, that I can't it's like you might not be able to handle it just because you're trying too hard to fix it. No, just
Mm-hmm.
hold
Mm-hmm.
space. Like you can be a
Yeah.
good friend just by sitting there and holding space.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that there's layers. That's great. Yeah, there's layers or there's levels, I should say. There's levels of skill in being able to handle exposure,
Hmm.
right? So some people have very low tolerance for exposure, and
Hmm.
some people have like exceptionally high tolerance for exposure
Hmm.
in that way. But like what you're saying reminds me of something I say to clients all the time in talking about fate, and talking
Hmm.
about like positive and so-called positive and negative fate, or positive and negative experiences. And the way I frame it is usually in the terms of like being roommates, right? So if I had this scenario in which you and I are roommates, and I come home and I give you the story of the best day I've ever had in my life. Found $500 on the sidewalk. This person I was really into is into me. I just got the job I wanted. Or whatever, like all the things you could imagine. That would be just like really like it would set you on fire with joy, right? So what happens when you do that is that positivity rolls forward automatically,
Hmm.
meaning that like let's share. That's the idea. Like so, what a good day! I want to take everybody out to dinner. Like I'm resourced, I'm feeling it. Like let's do this. And so someone else has benefited by my good fortune. So this phenomenon, Chinese cosmology is very attuned to, because that's what they say, like great benefit cannot be contained. Or if you have prosperity in your life, in order for it to become great benefit, it must be shared, right? You need
Hmm.
to actually take that step. You can't, hoarding depletes everyone, right? Because of this. This is the way
Hmm.
resources work. This is the way relatedness actually works. So conversely, if I had the negative cowboy story, and I lost this and lost that, and I came in with like on crutches, I just broke my leg, like just terrible day. I tell clients that if you're healthy, you don't go into their experience. If you're
Hmm.
healthy, you become generous with them. Everybody kind of chips in to kind of help them, recover with their recovery, right? But I don't now have a bad day. Our circle doesn't have a bad day. So it doesn't spread the same way. So that's why when we talk about positive and negative fate in those terms, it's to understand that what is strong is necessarily positive, and what is negative is necessarily weak. And the weakness is actually how it undermines our capacity, right? And so that's how those sorts of dynamics work. So when we're talking about the way in which we're like intimately connected this moon, like my goodness, like that's the reason why in the ninth moon and the dog moon we're contracting, back to the people that we can really trust, because we're all going to be like very close with each other, in a pig moon, just based on the trust that we need to be able to share as we go through this time of darkness. So yeah, we don't want to always bring strangers in from the cold, but it's really about how we engage with strangers to help make them friends so they're not a danger to themselves and others. That's where the generosity comes in, right? Where we can turn curses into blessings. Like somebody pulled over and helped me with my flat tire because I had a broken hand. Like that's how we take care of one another in this kind of really elemental way that's not conceptual. I didn't do it because I'm a good Samaritan or a good Christian or a good this kind of thing. That's all after the fact. In the moment, we do as Mencius does. We hear a kid in the well, and everybody gets around it. Everybody tries to figure it out. There's no thought there. There's no reason. You're just doing it, So this is the nature of pig. And because that's the nature, then there's a lot of capacity, especially in a wood pig, a lot of capacity here, yes, for reinvention, but it's usually like, I can't take it anymore, or like I've been deceived. Even bad things that happen then reveal where you should not be.
Mhm.
So those kinds of things can happen in this year, or in this particular moon, given that it's a wood dragon year as well. So you should count your blessings even in the pig moon if something where you are betrayed. You should count your blessings because then you can cut your losses and you can really move on, in a way that's actually nurturing for you, where then you rediscover where you need to be, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
So it'll be a clean break, then
Nice.
then you can forgive, but never forget. Right.
Nice. Hold on one
Right.
second.
So there's those kinds of things that are available.
All right, I have a thing coming up real quick. Any advice or who's made for this or anything?
Yeah. So when it comes to the other earthly branches, like the only not red flags, but because everybody needs to have fun, so they're going to have fun in their own way. So just like dragons kind of are disappearing, from the dog moon coming into pig, the snakes are already gone. Like they've kind of disappeared, mostly because snakes are very interested in discretion, especially in the winter, very interested in discretion, where pig can be kind of all up in your face. So I just want to tell you how much I love you. And the snake's like, okay, like it's a
Hmm.
little too much too fast. Yeah. So there can be a lot of straightforwardness when it comes to pig chi that snake will try to skirt around. They'll be the first one to leave the Christmas party, kind of thing. So they're going to handle themselves in a way that preserves their privacy. Let's put it that way. But all the domestics do incredibly well because they're looking to be attuned with one another. So like your dogs, your pigs do well. The only thing I'd say about pigs is that they should, try not to indulge too much, in things in their appetites. And I do mean that, like, don't try to overeat
Hmm.
or like overindulge, those kinds of that's their big vulnerability. And they'll do that if they eat their feelings. That would be a big this year or this moon. But rabbits do very well, although discretion is also something that they got to look out for. Um, and goats, but this is a good moon for goats in a year that is generally not great. They should network, have holiday parties essentially. They'll do well because they're kind of planning. They're doing it as planning. Um, and then all your forward going ones, most the ones most at risk. I mean, tigers, they'll be fine if they have good friends. Horses, also the same. They need good friends. We already mentioned dogs and rats. Yeah, I mean, I'm going out on a limb here saying like the only thing that could be of like significant risk for maybe somebody like a rat or even a snake is betrayal, like and roosters. Roosters might feel betrayed by somebody's sloppy behavior because there'd be plenty of capacity for squandering and sloppy behavior. Pigs are not about being exact. They're not about being like, I made sure I had my T's crossed and I's dotted. They're not really doing that. So this could be a fun time for monkeys. This could be a really heart-opening time for monkeys, for sure. But roosters might find more, they need to loosen up, let's put it that way. And everybody needs to kind of slow down and loosen up a bit. And I think it can be a really joyful time for everyone. You just have to pay attention. You have to check any of the earthly branches that sort of take themselves too seriously. And that can be, yeah, your roosters primarily and your oxen, actually, because they can be a little too stern. Well, it's got to be this way. They need to kind of loosen up a little bit, and not worry too much, not try to make it perfect, just relax, just relax.
Hmm.
But
Hear
this is
that?
a really good ancestral time, also, just to say that, like, this is a great time for those people who are inclined for divination practice, also ancestor worship, or ancestral offerings. The dead are coming in. So those sorts of high volume, high intensity emotions are not always just yours. Let's put it
Hmm.
that way. Depending on your own fate. So again, just try to relax through it. Don't draw conclusions necessarily. Just kind of work with it, breathe through it, that kind of thing. So I hope that was helpful. Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
pigs are can be really fun, joyful time. I think that where people get off track is that they try to make something constructive out of it.
Hmm.
You can just enjoy it, like
Yeah.
not like make it productive in any way. Like
Yeah.
that's Ming would say even relaxation is a form of qigong.
Oh, it's
So
big time. It's a
yeah,
skill.
yeah.
And like
So
talk about,
cultivate
I
that
mean,
skill.
to most of us, I would say it's one of the hardest skills to cultivate.
Correct. Like, and that's
Mhm.
so that's the one thing. If people are like skill oriented, then develop your skill for relaxation,
There was
because
a
that's what we need right
like a
now.
profound thing in the book, The Peaceful Warrior, right? When I'll remember it
Hmm.
wrong, but he goes, "Show me the show me the coolest move you can do." And the guy like jumps up on the table and he does a big backflip and does some crazy gymnastics move. And then the master was like, "Cool." And he goes, "What can you do?" And he just drank water. And he goes, "I did so much more than you." He's like, "I nourished my kidneys, I hydrated my body." And he's like, "You just flipped. You just did a big flip." And
Yeah,
he's like, "But
yeah,
this did
yeah.
so much more to my body." And knowing that like
Mm.
we're so
Mm.
used to results and we forget about
Mhm.
like that simple act of just like feeling and tuning in. Like I just taught a kid today just about like retuning in with their body and like moving through everything and just relaxing, and to watch him just come down, and it's profound. He looked just more alive at the end of it. He was like, wow. And because he'd just been caffeinating and going through it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So just
yeah. So on that point, the last thing I would want to say is that to understand the pig moon is to understand something really significant about the cosmology, the Tongshu, and the cosmology of Chinese thought in general, is this quality of self-resolving.
mm,
So oftentimes, so if I'm given a sandwich and I eat that sandwich, I'm not making any kind of choices about how that sandwich is digested.
mm,
Zero. I have no
yeah,
involvement, but
yeah,
everything about my physiology suggests the resolution of that interaction. And like
mm,
it brings it to fruition. It gives me a voice. It gives me the capacity to read and study and sing and communicate, right? Just by eating the sandwich, right? So all the most significant aspects of our existence are self-resolving. That's
mm,
the important thing to take away from looking at the 10th moon and understanding the 10th moon fully. When we say, oh, what's the benefit of rolling back to being? Well, then you find out what's actually already happening are the most important things that are happening.
yeah,
So I drink water and my kidneys are nourished, has to do with the fact that it's self-resolving, you
yeah,
know? And so all it's already, as Ming would say, it's already taken care of.
yeah. Well, and it's
Everything
also
about you
it's yeah, it's like
already
so many
taken
people are
care
in
of.
fight or flight. Drink water because your kidneys need it and your kidneys are being pushed.
Well,
So it's
they'll
like,
attach a
yeah.
they attach a
Hmm.
purpose to it that's
Hmm.
productive in some way.
Yeah.
And like the suggestion of the 10th moon, and this is very difficult for Americans to understand, is that, well, if you accept the principle of self-resolving, then you're just following appetite
Yeah.
because you know that that's connected to the kind of self-resolving quality.
Oh, when I teach healing arts, I'm always like, who cares? Just get things
Right,
moving. You're good. Like
right, right.
if the river's moving, if it's not,
Yeah,
then maybe go. I talked to a guy the other day. He had a hurt joint, and I just said, I don't. I go, I know you want a name on it because the American mind is like, if I can name that sneeze, there's a pill to kill that thing,
yeah,
right?
exactly. I have a
But if it has
solution.
no
Yeah.
name, I don't know what to buy on the shelf, right?
Right, right.
and
I
but
have to
like the healing,
have to
yeah.
pathologize my
Yeah.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But the
yeah,
healing arts are a little different. You want flow, right? You want, you want to break tensions and fixations and
yeah.
stagnations.
Because you are assuming that your body actually will incline itself toward
Yeah.
homeostasis and healing.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
so that's the same sort of extension of this like
Mhm.
self-resolving quality.
Yeah.
So there's big questions around the idea of like, well, when following fate, do you necessarily need to know it?
Mhm.
No, yeah, because it's going to happen. Is there any benefit of knowing your fate? Like,
Yeah.
or that my fate, the best question is there anything you could actually advise to the client in line of like consultation? Is there anything you can actually suggest to the client that wouldn't actually naturally arise of itself? And the answer is no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, is there a benefit to talking to somebody? Who knows? Maybe, like we're doing it, so we'll see what happens. But the idea is that what's the most important about that is to knowing that like it's already taken care of. It's already
Yeah.
taken care of. You're just playing it through. And
But
yes, you
people,
can do that in a
I don't
good
want to
way
be
or a bad way.
contrarian to this, but like it's taken care of. Everything is, so I agree. But the thing is a lot of this wisdom was at a time where where access to things that were moving us away from it's kind of like our choices when we say the word fun, right?
Yeah.
The things that
Hmm.
we're choosing are
Yeah.
probably not, again, it's what we talked about with sleep. Oh, you'll sleep.
You'll sleep. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's no
It's,
right, there's
yeah. Mhm.
self-resolution doesn't necessarily mean that it's resolved correctly.
Yeah, it's
Like it,
resolved
it
yeah, it's like,
it's resolved,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like for instance, like when it comes to our lifestyle as Westerners, having cancer and diabetes and heart disease as companions is correct.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
correct. They're
yeah.
there as companions to the lifestyle that we lead. So
There was a funny meme that said something about like instead of putting a pink ribbon on your products to raise money for
awareness,
cancer,
yeah.
why don't you take the ingredients out that cause
That
cancer?
causes cancer. Oh,
No, 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 no. We're
no.
putting these cancer causing
We don't want to
ingredients
take away
in.
people's choice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we're at,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
That's
yeah,
our
it does make it difficult to kind of to buy into the self-resolving quality, but it's important to understand that like, there's no uh validation or qualification of what's resolving or not. Everything's
well
resolving.
that's why I like, so my friends, I would always say that's why I like living near a hippie co-op. Because I know I can walk in and buy anything, and I don't need to think too
Check the
much
label.
about the. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't have
Yeah.
to, right?
Right.
And that's also why I'm grateful that I fast a lot, and my palate has is at a certain,
Hmm.
like, sweet to me
Yeah.
is very relative. Like I don't need a
That's
lot of
fresh.
sugar
Yeah,
or
that's
whatever.
facts.
Yeah,
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 same.
stuff like that. So I'm just calibrated to actually enjoy things, and just the things that I enjoy, like they tend to lean more towards like pretty okay for me, right?
They tend to
Um,
nourish you. Yeah, they
yeah,
tend to
yeah,
nourish you.
yeah,
Yeah. So those kinds of, just from an astrological standpoint, that momentum that you've generated in your life, not just this year, but like
yeah,
over the
yeah,
decades of your life,
yeah.
that they flower,
Hmm.
and during this time. And this is true for everybody. So all the momentum of self-care and conscious, this, that, or like the kinds of things that really feel like you feel nourished by. The suggestion would be like, have two this time, like have
Hmm.
more, have another,
Yeah,
have another helping of that, because what you're doing is you're preserving your essence, you're nourishing your essence, because, I say don't let yang out, but you're gonna, this is a great time for squandering. That's
yeah,
what we do. We squander. That's why we die. There's nothing wrong with that, because nobody's going to live forever, because we're technically immortal, but that's another conversation. It's just
hmm,
to say that, squandering's okay, nourishment's okay. So just be in your experience, because there is no result, there is no like ultimate goal here, is other than just being, in touch with your actual experience, that being quality, right? So you
hmm,
are going to be drawing on, the previous years and decades of your life, not just this year, of all the things you've established that nourish you. And some of those things may be ancestrally related and motivated, so there
Mm.
is that kind of so-called ghostly quality, the influence of the ancestors that kind of sweeps through this time from here all the way to spring, is that once heaven takes off, then the spaciousness and the sort of dimensionality and the liminality of Earth itself just opens up. It's kind of like all the shadows come out to play. And that's not, some of it may be undermining, but a lot of it is actually just natural. It's just not all of it's natural, that we
Mm.
understand ourselves as in this kind of dimensional liminal space. And that's what makes us human. Not human in the middle of June, but definitely human in November. That's what human looks like
Mm.
because we're faceted. Humans aren't just one thing. And so when we get to November, the facet that includes all your ancestors and their appetite for porridge, gets illuminated, whereas this other facet that needs, a ton of sun and likes being busy all the time becomes dim, right? So that's when you think of human beings, I'd like to think of human beings as a kind of a faceted orb, and not all of them are lit up at one time. It kind of depends on what season we're in. And that's how you
Nice.
nourish the kind of essence that's within.
Nice.
Uh,
All right, everyone, go to the 8 piece. You have 1 week
I'm
to get a
excited to see
discount.
how this presents. It was a great workshop. I was really honored to be part of that. So it's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's good to have you, man.
And 1 week from today is actually when winter begins. So you better get it because it's gonna clamp shut after that.
Yeah, you want to, and then, you know,
Nourish
we're
in.
we're building it up, but we are just kind of taking a little time because
Smart.
it was, it was a thing. And then all the new stuff with the Yama system. Heath Orchard has been a hero in this. So
Not hard to believe. He's a genuine human being.
yeah, he is special. I've never seen someone show up on the level that he shows up, and I learned a lot just by, some people just transmit. So thank you
Yeah.
guys, and go to www.the8piece.com and theyamasystem.com. Get a reading from Scott. Yeah, DM this guy, and
In the
it's a
spring.
great gift. It's a great gift. It's a great gift.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Buy the
yeah,
gift
getting readings.
now, have the service in the spring. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. All right.
All right.
See you,
Love you,
man.
bro.